Celebrity Everyday 26.
The magnificent Sinclair is one of Deadlock's newest heroes, joining the roster of characters in mid-January. Sinclair has a unique backstory, as this character is actually two different people, a married couple of magicians whose souls have been bound together by magic. Having died in an onstage accident, they are now ghosts who are unable to be separated from one another, fighting for control of a single body. This manifests in-game by having the voice of the character switch back and forth between Henry and Savannah Sinclair after each death, though not as stylish as Wraith. What these ghost magicians lack in design features, they more than make up for with their damage output. Their gun, the Prestige, a nod to the 1995 Christopher Priest novel and 2006 Christopher Nolan film adaptation, is slow, but it hits hard. As one might expect, Sinclair also has some magic up their sleeve which can also help take out enemies. Sinclair started off as one of Deadlock's best heroes, so they have already required a nerf. That said, these build tips should still hold up. The best abilities and items to use with the magnificent Sinclair in Deadlock. Start with Vexing Bolt before getting into the build you should use. Let's go over the magnificent Sinclair's abilities. Sinclair has a nice mix of abilities. They have a strong poke that works well in the early game, a clone that can be used for burst damage or mobility, and some crowd control. Sinclair doesn't have their own ultimate ability. Rather, they can copy that of a nearby enemy. The full breakdown of Sinclair's abilities is below. Ability. Description. Vexing Bolt. Fire a bolt of magic that deals damage and applies a fire rate slow. If you have an assistant, they also cast Vexing Bolt at reduced damage. Press 1 to redirect the bolt towards your crosshairs. Spectral Assistant. Summon an assistant at the targeted location. The assistant attacks wherever you fire your weapon, dealing damage. While the assistant is out, you can press 2 to swap positions with your assistant. Casting Spectral Assistant also reloads your weapon. Rabbit Hex. Hex a target, transforming them into a rabbit for a limited duration. Rabbits are small and move faster, but take increased damage and are unable to perform most actions. Hex does not interrupt abilities. Audience participation. Copy the ultimate of an enemy hero for a limited time. Reactivating the ability will use the copied ultimate instead. Copies will inherit this ability's upgraded points. Copies will no gain benefits from imbue. Audience participation will also copy the cooldown. Right off the bat, you want to start by unlocking Sinclair's Vexing Bolt ability. This is a great way to put pressure on enemies in your lane early on. Shooting it up into the sky and using its redirect can even help you poke enemies who are in cover. This makes Sinclair hard to deal with early game. You'll want to level this ability all the way before any others. The extra charge is a good addition for Vexing Bolt early on. As for your second skill, you'll want to grab Spectral Assistant. The added damage can help clear minions faster and push your lane, or it can help finish off an enemy hero who's low on health. Because you can swap spots with the assistant, you can also use it to get out of trouble if things aren't going your way. MO and Krill from Deadlock. Related. Deadlock. Best MO and Krill build, abilities, items, and leveling guide. Learn how to utilize abilities and items with MO and Krill to control lanes in Deadlock. Travel underground and disarm enemies to win more matches. As for early items, a good first option could be High Velocity Mag. Its increased bullet velocity can help make up for how slowly the Prestige fires and make it a bit easier to hit enemies. Hollow Point Ward is another nice addition as it will increase Sinclair's already impressive weapon damage. Later on, you'll want to focus more on items that increase your spirit abilities since these interact well with your Vexing Bolt and Rabbit Hex. But early game, you may be relying a bit more on your gun before you can reduce ability cooldown during the mid-game. You'll want to grab some items that can help you use your abilities more frequently. By reducing cooldown or giving yourself extra ability charges, you can pressure enemies even harder with your Vexing Bolt. More Rabbit Hexes can also be really helpful for dealing increased damage and preventing enemies from using their own abilities. When leveling abilities, you'll want to get a few extra levels on your Rabbit Hex at this point. While a top-level assistant can be great for burst damage, I think the added crowd control from your Rabbit Hex is a bit more useful at this stage. You can save leveling audience participation for late game. Two items are essential for your late-game build on the magnificent Sinclair: Echo Shard and Spiritual Overflow. Echo Shard can help you lock down multiple enemies at once with Rabbit Hex, or give you an extra assistant cast for even more burst damage. Sinclair can charge up a Spiritual Overflow quickly, and its bonus to Spirit Power works well with his abilities. The magnificent Sinclair really shines in the early landing stage of the game, so you'll want to push your advantage here as much as you can. Poke as often as you can, and double it up with your assistant to help take out enemies in your lane. Getting some early momentum can help carry you into the later stages of the game, where Sinclair can struggle a bit more. You'll want to continue scaling your weapon and spirit damage in the mid to late game with your items to make sure you are still taking advantage of how hard Sinclair can hit. During the later sections of the game, you'll probably want to be using your Rabbit Hex more frequently. The more powerful your opponents get, the more beneficial it is to lock them out of their abilities. You'll also want a strong understanding of each Deadlock hero's ultimate ability. Ultimates can be hugely important for swinging momentum in your favor, and you'll really need to know which ones to steal and how to use them if you're playing Sinclair. This can make Sinclair a bit trickier to learn, as you'll need to learn other heroes a bit as well.
Celebrity Every Day 26.